Hi everyone, I'm Mims, and thanks for being here. I have a can of seltzer, and I can hear the train in the background. I'm doing this outside, but I'm going to keep recording. We might pause, but I'm near the railroad, and I thought it was relatively quiet. So, and now there's hammering going on upstairs. We're just going to go with it. So, I got a package in the mail, and I mean, I bought it. It wasn't like a surprise package. This is something I ordered for myself. This is from Chain Assembly. There are 2 decks, and we're going to I started to record this a little bit earlier, and then I was flipping through the cards, and they were out of order, and it's hard for me to talk to the camera and also like double check that all the cards were there. So I'm making a new video. Mostly though, I just flipped through it just to get the cards in order and make sure that everything was there. Especially because it's an independent business, if there was anything wrong with it, I just, wanted to be able to let them know right away. And there was nothing wrong, but I always like to, and even with mass market decks, I always open them up really quick and count and make sure all the cards are there. Just because I've heard people talk about, it's never happened to me, and I have a lot of decks, but I have heard people talk about how, like a deck being missing, or a card being missing, or like a card being damaged or something. And so it's, anyway, we're here to look at decks. I had been interested, both of these decks, well, for sure one of them has been on my wish list for a while. I think the other one has only been out like a year. But they're both put out by Chain Assembly, which is a small independent, I think it's a husband and wife, or 2 human partners. And they've put out a few different tarot decks over the years, and some of these, I think both of these were actually Kickstarters, but I just bought them from their website. And they were offering, at least at the time, they were offering free shipping for an order over $75, and I was going to get both decks anyway. And then they also had a couple of bundles, so I have a few extra goodies in here. But first, let's just look at the decks, and then we'll do a 1-card pull with each of them, because I always think it's fun for me because it's a good chance to just at least get a taste of the guidebook. And it also, if you're thinking about maybe getting this deck, or you just need a little reading yourself, I kind of enjoy it for that. So, Tarot of the Neon Light, a tarot deck by Chain Assembly. This came out in 2022, and it's designed by and written by Ribera. And there are a few other, like I said, so it's the Sugar Plum Tarot and then this deck that we're going to talk about today. But they have also made, let's see, there's like an Italian horror movie, cinema tarot, I can't remember what it's called, like tarot, I can't remember. And there's I think like a dark oracle deck that they have, and then I think they have like an erotica deck. They have a few other things out there, and I think they also sell some photography, and they also I think they have made some games. So anyway, it is an indie deck, but it's kind of neat that I think it's fun to see what else people make, even if I'm not necessarily interested in those particular things. It's just fun to see what they have and what they're doing. So pardon the noise. So it comes in this lovely little magnetic box, and I had seen this deck, I'm not sure, sometime probably in the last couple of years. And oh yeah, so I love this. That's the bottom, and I'll read this inscription. That seemed like a beautiful prayer, so I looked out the window and began, and my eye fell on the neon Bible below, and I couldn't go on. Then I saw the stars in the heavens shining like the beautiful prayer, and I began again, and the prayer came out without even thinking, and I offered it up to the stars in the night sky. John Kennedy Toole, The Neon Bible. So these are the backs. And I'm absolutely, this is definitely one of my favorite backs. Those are great. Reversible. They have kind of this black, not kind of, it is, like a black gilding. And they are typical tarot card size, and I can tell just by my hand because I didn't bring another deck out. So yeah, and it also, oh yeah, that's what I was going to read. In the very beginning, it says, the idea for the deck began with a photo I took of a neon sign in Dallas, Texas. It wasn't a complex sign, but its artificial steady glow summoned feelings of nostalgia, mystery, and freedom. Neon is a staple of the American landscape. And then for the design, I wanted to ensure the focus of each card remained unobstructed. That is why the cards have no border and fade into darkness, which is perfect because it's the neon, the nighttime. And I also decided to forego a typical labeling system and used an icon for the suit and a number for the card. I find that this simplicity makes the impact of each illustration glow like the signs they represent. I love that. So, and there's somebody, I forget who it is, has this card as their, someone on TarotTube has this card as their, like the photo of their channel. And it took me a while to realize that it was this deck. But I love it. Yeah, so here's what he was talking about. So those are the majors, and then just the very simple numbering. We'll look at all of the cards, but I just wanted to point that out since I had read that. And then for the, you have the cups and then numbering. All the cards are labeled. And then you get to the pentacles, and again the numbering. And then the swords, and then the wands. I really like that. So let's just flip through. I think that there are a lot of reasons why I was interested in this deck. And again, I didn't know about the Kickstarter when it came out. I love neon lights. I'm sure a lot of people do. When I was little, I remember there was a, well, not that little, like probably in the 5th or 6th grade, I was reading some, I just remember in this, one of the books that I read, and this would have been like kind of teenage light romance, you know, young adult sort of stuff, nothing deep. But in them, there was someone who had a neon sign on their wall. And it was like describing this really cool apartment. And probably a combo of that and some other things have always had me infatuated with signs. I grew up in New Mexico, and we would drive to my grandmother's house on weekends. She didn't live that far away, but I remember seeing neon signs, you know, at night. There were a couple of signs that I was really infatuated with. And I also enjoy like nighttime photography and all of that. So there were just a lot of reasons why this, like road trips, and I think some people kind of associate this with, say, Las Vegas, but you know, like he said in that card or in that intro, neon used to be a big part of a lot of you know, not just the West or not just Las Vegas. But there is in, I think it's in Pueblo, Colorado, and I'd like to go. They have a neon alley, and what they've done, from what I understand, is they have taken like old signs, you know, like maybe old hotels or motels and things that are no longer there, but they took the old neon signs down, or someone bought them up, whatever it was, and they've made this little walkway where you can do whatever you want. You don't have to take photos, but I want to go and take photos of it. And I love like taking photos of Christmas lights at night, there's just something kind of cool. So this makes me want to get in a car with my camera and some tarot decks and just go chase down neon signs. I love the simplicity of this. I love how you see this, you know, sort of smoke. This also reminds me a bit of, for a few years, I was living in this city that I loved, and they did, like at the Botanic Gardens in that city. I think lots of cities do some version of this, where they put up a bunch of Christmas lights and things, and you can walk through. And of the 5 years that I lived there, I think I did it all but 1 year. Tickets were not that expensive, and it was open, I think, from like Thanksgiving to late November through the very end of December. And people would go with, like, you know, kids and everything, and it wasn't, you know, that expensive, you know, like 10 or 12 bucks. But I would go just by myself and go take photos. And sometimes I would do it like after the holidays. Sometimes I would do it in early December, depending on if I was traveling or whatever for the holidays. But I always enjoyed that, and it was such a fun kind of cozy thing. I would get, you know, I would just get bundled up so that I didn't have to worry about a coat, and then I could just have my camera and just take pictures. And yeah, and it was just a neat little tradition that I had made for myself. You know, it just kind of happened to work out like I did the first year, and then it was sort of something I looked forward to. And like I said, I did it. Yeah. So, yeah, there's something about nostalgia here. There's something also just about the beauty of neon signs, and a lot of these are going away. But it makes me, I don't necessarily know that it makes me want to go to Vegas. I wouldn't mind going around Vegas. Some of the land around Las Vegas, Nevada is beautiful. There's Red Rock Canyon. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, I would love to. I definitely want to take a road trip, and I definitely want to do some nighttime photography. And I'm not a skilled photographer at all. I've been a hobby photographer for years with like little or no skill, and you could probably tell that by my thumbnails. But it's only been in the last couple of years where I've wanted to, like, maybe we could go beyond just pressing the shutter and wishing that it'll turn out. So anyway, that's probably more than you care to know, but I just wanted to share. I love the simplicity of these, but you still have a lot of the traditional Rider-Waite Smith. I don't even know how it was made, but I love it. This kind of feels like one of those decks that you could have, like, it could be summer, you know, you might think of it like a road trip summer kind of a deck, but it could also be, I don't know, there's something about neon that makes me think of like winter, and I don't know why. Maybe because at times when everything else is bleak, the neon is the only thing. I don't know. But this just feels like one of those decks that you could use all the time, and I love, again, that simplicity of it, but you still see all the symbols. Okay, this has got to be one of my very favorite cards of the whole deck. I love that too, you know, the world in your hands. Again, symbolism from the Rider-Waite Smith, but there's just something about that one. Yeah, these are good. I had not seen a full flip through. I had seen part of the deck in somebody's collection video maybe a couple years ago, and I just was enamored with it. I love that one too. That's a good one. It's fun to see this, how the symbolism page. Night, yeah. Oh, so cool. Okay, let's do a 1-card pull. Let me just pull these back up. I'm gonna take a sip of seltzer. This also feels like, even if you don't want to do a road trip, this also feels like a deck you might want to have, like when you're home watching movies. I feel like there's so many movies that have, you know, road trips in them and so forth. It just feels like it would be like a deck you'd keep in your car, and then also, you know, at home when you're curled up with a movie or something, or even a good book, even a good road trip book. Yeah, I'm really excited to have this. I say that, I know, every time, but I just think it's a really, I'm still sometimes astounded at the creativity of how somebody can take 78 cards and then do something different. And even the decks are somewhat similar. They're still, I just love how there's something to that 78 cards that inspires creativity and themes, and it's just neat to see what pops up. Okay, what message do you have for us today? Ooh, what message? Oh, that card flew out. We actually got, okay, I'm just gonna take the one on the top. We got the devil. Okay, I could go into a meaning, but let's see what the book says, and I'll hold up the card. The devil describes an imbalance between the physical and the spiritual. It is a focus on pleasure above all else, represented by the snakes and a star with 5 points rather than 6. It is bondage and a slave to the pleasures of the flesh. It may not necessarily be a bad place, but it is a representation of this imbalance. Okay, I'm going to put a personal interpretation on this one. I feel like more recently I have been going for short-term gains rather than longer-term solutions. As in, sometimes it's easier to take off work a little early. I work for myself. I'm a self-employed online teacher, and I did that today, so maybe I'm thinking about that. But like, it wasn't like I didn't show up or like pretended to work and then didn't, you know, and like got paid. It wasn't any of that. But I could have probably taught another hour today. It's a beautiful afternoon. I wanted to get out, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like I've been doing that a lot more recently. Not necessarily taking off work early, but looking more at those short-term pleasures rather than my longer-term goals and what that might mean. So teaching another hour today, or a couple extra hours, could put me a little closer to a financial goal. We'll put it that way. So, like, there's nothing wrong with taking rest, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying yourself. But at least for me, I think I've been going for the short-term pleasure or gain rather than remembering that long-term goal that I'm looking for, which is some financial goals, and specifically a move and some things. So I think that's what I'm taking that to mean. If that's helpful, great. If not, just leave it behind. And I didn't mean to divulge that much. But anyway, that is Tarot by the Neon Light. I think I keep saying Tarot of the Neon Light, but it's Tarot by the Neon Light. And that is just a delightful deck. I love the color. I love this night aspect to it. It feels like I was saying earlier, it kind of feels timeless in the sense that it feels modern and yet it feels like there's some nostalgia there. It also feels timeless in the sense that I feel like this could be a deck that even if you're having a dark night of the soul, this deck isn't like, you can use it as that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be dark and depressive. Or this could be a deck for road trips. I don't know. I have a whole bunch of ways that I think that it would be fun to take this deck along. And this deck definitely feels like it would be a good on-the-go deck. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the bundle that came with it. And my guess is that some of these were extra things that maybe were in the Kickstarter, or no matter what, I think it's neat when people, I think it's just fun to see what people come up with. So they had, you could buy the deck by itself, or you could get it with this. Am I doing this right? And I put it down earlier, so I thought I got hair on it. It's a spread, or a spread mat. So it's made out of, you know, it's got like a rubber backing, so no skid. And maybe this is partly also what made me think, I thought this would be good for, you know, if you were on the road and you wanted to be able to put it out and that, you know, it's a little sturdier. I just thought this was kind of cool. And I tend to not really use spread cloths. I will use like a bandana or a scarf, but I tend not to put, you know, like a cloth out over my table. But I love something like this. And I like that it's sturdy and no skid. It's the same material. I guess we don't really use them as much anymore, but you know, like an old mouse pad, you know, the thing that you'd put under your mouse, that's what it reminds me of. So they also sent along, I didn't remember this being part of the bundle, but I thought this was cute. Tarot by the Neon Light. You'll find 3 cards. So I'm not going to open that, but it has the extra cards for a 3-card drawing, which I thought that was neat. I may send this to somebody, but I thought that was a neat touch. But as far as I know, that was not part of the bundle. I think they just sent that to me. And then they sent little rubber bracelet, the chain assembly. That's cute. And they also sent Ready Play Games presents And You Live to Tell the Tale. A group of explorers relax by the fire and swap stories of adventure. Take turns weaving tales of drama and chance encounters using an array of randomized prompts from the supplied cards. Ages 10 plus, 2 to 4 players. So that's a neat little bonus. If I didn't say this before, I may be repeating myself, but I knew about these 2 decks, but they also, I think, have made some puzzles and some games. I know that they sell some photography of theirs, and yeah, so that's a fun little extra as well. The next one, now this was a bundle, and I did specifically pay for it because I just thought, yeah, I'll do the extra. So the Sugar Plum Tarot, which we're going to do a flip through of in a minute. And then, so you could buy just the deck, or you could buy the little Sugar Plum Tarot bundle, which includes a bag. And look how pretty that bag is. It looks almost like it reminds me of which is probably the point, but it reminds me a little bit of a stocking. And then it also came, but I remember this was specifically listed in the bundle. This is Sugar Plum Tarot, a 3-card reading. And I thought it would be neat to have it again. I might send it to someone, but I also love when there's a chance to get like extra cards, because I would like to make a magpie deck, which is where you pull cards from different decks and then make your own deck. And so it's always fun when there's an option to get some extra cards from someone. But because I thought, oh, well, I've got the Sugar Plum Tarot, and now this was the bonus. This was part of the bundle, but I've got some extra cards now that like I said, I may send these to people, or I may keep them for myself and start a magpie deck, because that's always kind of a neat idea. Okay, so there's and I had wanted I have wanted like a winter, December holiday deck, whatever you want to call it. And this, I think, was being crowdfunded last year, but I didn't know about it. But there was something that I had read, or I heard in an interview, there was a podcast interview with the creators, and they talked about how Christmas or the holidays, Yule, whatever you celebrate, whether it's secular or it's part of your, religious or spiritual traditions, that so many of those things we sometimes get, this is at least my interpretation for what I remember about that, and we will get into the cards, but they were talking about how you could make your own traditions and you can decide what those are. The traditions don't have to be shopping or doing a lot of extra stuff, but the traditions can be, for some reason, this is how I think about this deck, because I could not think of anything more cozy. I said, you can make cookies, and that could just be you, or you can curl up with a puzzle, and that could just be you. I don't know, and I may not be quoting them exactly, but somehow I've interpreted that interview, or it's on their website, or maybe it's in this book. But I'm pretty sure that it was somewhere else. I mean, it was from them. It was definitely from the creators. But I loved that idea, and it made me excited about this deck. I also liked this deck because it's diverse, and while there is some nostalgia in it, it also feels modern. So Sugar Plum, our Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck, captures the warmth, joy, and enchantment of Christmas, blending the season's simple pleasures. I think that's where I got it. It was the simple pleasures, not the complex, like, oh, I've got to buy a bazillion gifts, or have huge parties, but more like, what are those small, simple things that you enjoy doing? So there was something about that. So those are the backs, and those are really cute. And then here's the guidebook. So this is by Nick Ribera and Leslie Haas, or House. This came out in 2025. An intro. Imagine a world where the enchantment of Christmas is captured in every card. A world where the spirit of the season brings warmth, joy, and a touch of magic to your tarot readings. Oh, here we go. This is it. For us, Christmas is a time to slow down and savor the simple pleasures, indulging in seasonal treats, curling up with a warm drink, and watching holiday classics. This time of year covers everything in a fluffy marshmallow layer of holiday joy, and we want to capture that essence in our deck. Sugar Plum combines the enchanting charm of Christmas with the mystical art of tarot, inviting you to explore your journey amidst the cozy glow of the season. Okay, so, but I remember I'm pretty sure I remember them saying like puzzles and movies and, making treats or curling up with hot cider. I just thought, yeah. And maybe because I'm old enough and I'm facing a different circumstance, I've done this some years by myself, but I was always then made to feel guilty about it by family members. I enjoy being alone for the holidays, and I like making my own sorts of traditions and doing my own sort of thing. And it's not about being Scroogey. It's more sort of making space for what I want and what I enjoy. And I don't know, there was something about that in this deck. So let's get into the deck. So they have St. Nicholas and the Lovers. Yeah, these are cute. And La Befana for the Hermit. Let's look her up, or look that one up, because I'm curious what it says. La Befana. With broom and lantern, La Befana flies. She's here to be your Christmas guide. A basket of toys to fill stockings tight. Her gift for you is your inner guiding light. Sorry, there was a bug. I like the Wreath of Fortune. That's really cute. I just love how soft this deck is. But it doesn't feel like false. Like, ooh, everything. I like how it seems a bit modern. I don't know. It feels like it, or maybe it's because I want this to kind of be my deck. You know, I want this to be sort of my traditions. You know, not everything has to be about shopping. I know, I just bought 2 decks, but not everything has to be about big Christmas parties, or that you need to have a whole lot of people around. In fact, it might be, you know, just the time to separate yourself from that, or make your own traditions. And I think what I want to do is make or return to some of those traditions. Or bells. Like, I love this one. The Salvation Army kettle. At least in the United States, they often have those out in front of 7 of Bells. Looks like a toy. I'm not finishing sentences here. I'm just 8 of Bells. Looks like fixing one of those old ceramic trees. Okay, this is cute. And the 10 of Bells. Some of my favorite traditions include, I love to put up the tree around, you know, here in the US, we have Thanksgiving, which is problematic, which I'm not really going to get into right now, but which is usually near the very end of November. And often, not always, sometimes I have had to work in the past, but often it can be a long weekend, and I love putting up the tree over that time. And I'll put up a tree when it's, even if it's just me. I fully enjoy decorating. I love to watch Steel Magnolias. There's actually several seasons within that movie, or several holidays in that movie, but it always feels to me kind of like a Christmas movie. And then pulling out some Christmas movies, and I love hot drinks anyway, but like pulling out specialties and putting them together, specialty, but pulling out tea and cider and things and making a little tray so that it's easy then to enjoy them. I love that they're having, they look like they're in a hot spring or a hot tub. That's cute. Again, I love how that not all of this is, you know, perfect Christmas weather, snowy stuff. Like here it looks like she might be writing that maybe her holiday letter. Yeah. So I just love the coziness of it, and I like to keep my tree up as long as possible. And I do enjoy making, you know, certain holiday treats. Not even necessarily, like, you know, even sometimes they're not all desserts, but, you know, certain things that I only make during this time of year. And, you know, going to see Christmas lights. Sometimes I'll just go walk around by myself, just to, you know, just go walk around a neighborhood and see the lights. I have done it where I've celebrated with family, but I don't really want to talk about that. Anyway, this is just a really sweet deck. I love that it's diverse and inclusive. I love that you're seeing like lots of different types of traditions, lots of different sorts of scenes. I mean, it's definitely Christmas, but it could just be, you know, the secular enjoyment. You know, I love the dogs. If I have a toys, picking up all the wrapping paper. Yeah, this just looks like a sweet deck. I think it will be fun to use, and again, you know, just something cozy. Okay, let's do a one card pull. Whoops. Okay, their cards just jumping out all over the place. We got 10 of mugs, hot cocoa. Let's see what it says. Cold hands wrap around a warm mug. Chocolatey bliss comforts like a loving hug. Light sparkles above, you take in this time. Walking with your sugar plum, all is sublime. Moments together remind us of simple pleasures. Joy and happiness we will always treasure. So, I feel like that's very much what I've been kind of talking about and yearning for. Whether you're including a large family or making your own traditions, or even, you know, creating new traditions with someone. Whether you have a large family or it's just you, embrace those. Take the time to slow down and celebrate. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to using this deck during the holidays. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play with. I love how nostalgic it is, but there still feels like there's a modern tint. And it's sweet, but it doesn't feel saccharine. I feel like they've just made a lovely deck, lovely backs. And it's neat to have a deck that just sort of fits in that time of year. So there we go. I hope you're well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're finding joy. I hope that you are finding ways to take care of yourself and others in a mutual aid sense. And I hope to see you in another video. Take care.